Hello everyone, my name's Sharon. I'm the designer behind River Road Knits, and today I'm going to be telling you about my new pattern, the Flair Free Cardi. In this video, we're going to be talking about a few things in the pattern. We're going to talk about the construction, we'll talk about the fit, which is very important for this pattern. We'll also talk about the different modifications you can make, and also a recommendation for what yarn to choose. These videos are intended so that you can have an idea of what to expect with the pattern before you buy it. So let's get into what is the Flair Free Cardi. So the idea behind this cardigan was making a pattern that is completely simple, no extra design elements, no frills, no flair. So this was from talking with my friends at the local yarn store who wanted a cardigan pattern that they could recommend to customers. So we were talking about what would be important to include in that pattern. So this is what we came up with. The cardigan is constructed top down. So it is raglan shaped, so you'll cast on at the neck, and then there's increases that happen at the front edges, both sides of the sleeves, and then at the back. And that's what creates the increasing shape until you get to the sleeve split, and then you put the sleeves on hold and you knit the rest of the body top down. At the very end, you're going to obviously knit your sleeves, and then you'll complete this button band. So it's a very simple pattern. You can see that it's all stockinette. I don't have any extra patterning or cables or anything that would compete with the yarn choice that you would use or anything else. So the idea is that this is a pattern that you could follow just to get your absolutely basic wardrobe staple cardigan, or you could use it as a starting point to make your own sort of design. So we'll talk later about the modifications that you could use, but obviously this is sort of your blank slate that you can start being creative with. There are two different styles for this cardigan, so talking about fit is going to be really important. There are two styles, like I said. One is the traditional shape and one is the curvy shape. So let me explain. When you have a typical sweater, the pattern will be written such that the measurement from the underarm around the front and the underarm around the back are the same. And that's pretty typical with both knitting patterns and also bought garments from the store. They will have the same measurement around the front and the same measurement around the back. So as I said, this is not uncommon for garments that either you make or you buy. But when we're thinking about how a body is shaped, the measurement around the front bust and the back bust for women is different, right? Measuring around the front is going to generally give you a larger measurement than around the back. So when we were talking about at the local yarn store, we were kind of measuring ourselves and seeing this trend that the measurement around the back did not vary as much as the measurement around the front for women of different bust sizes. So this sort of led me to the idea of what if I created a pattern that took into account the fact that there is more volume up front. Sometimes this is accomplished in patterns with the use of bust darts, and I was trying to think of how to incorporate that in a little bit easier way than making you construct and place bust darts. So that's why we have a traditional version and a curvy version. The traditional version, which is the one that I'm wearing right now, the traditional version is the same measurement around the front as around the back. So it'll be the same as most of the garments that you've made, most of the garments that you buy. It's the same in the front and the back. So I would recommend this if you like the sort of garments that you've made, you feel like they fit you well, or if you don't have a larger bust size. And by that, I mean, your cup size is the way that I have referenced it in the pattern as an easy way to kind of get an idea of where you might fall. So I say if in the pattern, if you are maybe a C cup or less, you might like the traditional. If you are a C cup or more, you might like the curvy. So if you're somewhere at that dividing line, you can kind of think about what sort of fit you would like for your garment. So then talking about the curvy, which is this sample that I've made here, the curvy actually has 4 inches more in the front bust. So if you were thinking about, let's say, making a 44-inch garment, so if you were making the traditional version, that would just be split in half. So you would have 22 inches in the front, 22 inches in the back. If you had the curvy version, remember that's 4 inches larger in the front, so it would be 24 inches in the front and 20 inches in the back. So what that leads to is that not only do you have more room in the front, you also have a narrower back panel. So when you're thinking about garments that you've made in the past, if you can, if this has been your experience where you feel like it stretches more in the front, but in the back it kind of gaps and hangs loose. So this would kind of address that sort of fit issue. So again, the curvy may not be for everyone, it may not be your preference, but it would give an option for those who struggle with sort of the cardigans and the garments that they buy or that they make. So both sizes have 21, both fits rather, have 21 sizes ranging from 30 inches to 70 inches, and that's a finished bust measurement. So that's a total of 42 sizes for those keeping track at home, if you add up the 2 different fits. So how to pick your size. I've given recommendations on how you can pick your fit, but how to pick your size. With a cardigan like this, I recommend doing at least 2 or 3 inches of positive ease. And the reason why is that these buttons need to meet in the front and they need to close. So when you are working with very little ease or negative ease, the fabric starts to stretch and the buttons start to gap. So for that reason, if you're gonna wear your cardigan closed, I would recommend going with a few inches of positive ease. So for instance, this sample here is the curvy sample made in the size 38 with about 2 inches of positive ease. This one was not made for me, but it is very comfy. This is the traditional version made in the size 58, so that is about 23 inches of positive ease on me, and boy is it comfy. One more difference to point out between the 2 garments is the location of the waist shaping. Now the waist shaping is optional, you can leave it off, we'll talk about that more in the modifications. But the traditional, again, like a traditional garment, I have placed the increases and decreases along the center line of the underneath the underarm. Typical how you would normally, when you're casting on the stitches at the underarm, you place the stitch marker in the center, and that's where you locate your decreases and increases for the waist shaping. On the curvy version, because I have more volume in the front, I want to take that volume out after I've gone past the bust. So the decreases are actually more frequent on the front of the body than they are on the back, so that by the time I get down to the waist, I'm back at being equal front and back. Again, we can change this in modifications. So the other difference on the waist shaping on the curvy version is that I have done hourglass waist shaping. So that means that I've offset the decreases and increases in from the center, from the side seams on the body. So you can see here is actually the line of my shaping here on the front and here on the back. So what this does is it pulls the fabric in on, she's a little wobbly. It pulls the fabric in on the sides and it kind of creates an hourglass effect. So I felt like that would be a good feature to include in the curvy version. Again, this is something that can be modified. So let's just segue right into modifications. So obviously a lot of changes could be made with the shaping regardless of which fit you choose, curvy or traditional. So one is to take out the shaping entirely. If you prefer a boxy fit or a looser fit just throughout, or maybe you don't have that defined of a waist, you can just leave off the shaping. There's no problem with that. Or you can modify the shaping. So if you wanted, for instance, on the curvy version, if you decided you wanted to keep that extra volume in the front the whole way down, then you could just do your decreases, split them up evenly between the front and back instead of taking more stitches out in the front. Another fit that's easy to make is to create an A-line shape to it. So I have this written in the pattern actually as an option that you can swap out. So instead of doing decreases to go down to the waist, you could just skip the decreases section and only do the increases at the hips. So you would get a straight body through here and a flare out into the hips, and that will look really nice. So one more option that I have written in the pattern is to swap out your button bands. So I have here a 2x2 ribbed button band that's about an inch wide, but there were testers who decided to go different routes with their button bands. So some who made a really wide button band that wasn't going to button. Others who even put a zipper in, which I thought was really cool. So there's a lot of options that you can play with the button band, but obviously one is to just widen it and put a different stitch pattern in if you'd like, or make it garter stitch. That would kind of add your own flair to the garment. There is one more modification that I talk about in the pattern, and that is to change the sleeve fit. So these sleeves, as written, they're pretty slim the whole way down. Obviously, this one that I'm wearing has positive ease, but when I'm wearing this sample, this sleeve fits me pretty snug the whole way down my arm. And that was intentional, taking into account the fact that you might have positive ease in the sample that you make. But you could also have a looser fitting sleeve by just not including as many or any decreases down the length of the sleeve. That's up to you. So those are modifications that I have included and mentioned in the pattern, but you can obviously, like I said, this is your starting point, so you can throw any modifications you want at it. I didn't even mention color work options, and by that I mean, stripes or things like that. One of the testers did 3 different colors of stripes, and it looked really great. So you have that option to be able to play with as well. Finally, let's talk about yarn choice for this pattern. I was graciously provided yarn support from Kim Dye's Yarn for both of these samples, and I used her sourdough sock base, which is a merino nylon blend. So this one is in the colorway Mushroom Bisque, a really nice neutral with pops of yellow, gold, blue. I think it looks really, really nice. And then this one is in the colorway Dandelion, again, a beautiful golden yellow, orange. Beautiful depth of color. So highly recommend Kim if you're looking for yarn for this project. Obviously, I used a sock base for mine, but you could go with any sort of fingering weight yarn that you like. It would be perfect for an acrylic or a wool or one of your fancier cashmere blends. The only thing I would keep in mind is that you want something that has a little bit of memory, a little bit of spring, because my experience with raglan shaped cardigans that are made in a less springy fiber, such as an alpaca, it tends to stretch out and you get it falling further and further on your shoulders. So keep that in mind, that you want a little bit of spring and bounce to it. But the nice thing is that you're not competing with any stitch patterns. You're not have to worry about any sort of color work. So any option that you want to go with in terms of, you could do a solid, you could do a hand-dyed, you could do a highly variegated, you could use a tweed like one of my testers did. It looked great. All of these are totally well suited to this pattern. As far as yardage is concerned, I have estimated that you're going to use about 3 to 6 skeins of your typical 400 yard 100 gram skeins. So 3 skeins for the smallest sizes, all the way up to 6 for the largest sizes. And that's going to depend on the modifications that you make, so you may need more or less if you're adjusting the length of the garment or the sleeve length or anything. So keep that in mind when you're buying your yarn. Again, any sort of hand-dyed yarn or a solid or variegated, they would all work really great with this pattern. So thank you for watching. I'm gonna put all the links to where you can purchase this pattern in the description box below, as well as a link to Kim's yarns that you can check out. They're all beautiful, and I'm sure you'll find something that you like. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.